Welcome to this deep dive. Today we have a really fascinating piece of source material on the table.
Yeah, this one is pretty incredible.
It really is. We are going to be unpacking a transcript from a wildly popular language learning YouTube show. It's called the Mr. English Channel.
Right, which has a massive following.
Huge following. And our mission for this deep dive is to sort of look past the surface of their lessons, you know? We want to examine the underlying mechanics of how really effective educators operate.
Because they're doing something very subtle, but very powerful.
Exactly. Specifically, we're going to explore how they use the most mundane, everyday details of daily life things like, I don't know, eating breakfast or waiting for a bus to teach incredibly complex language mechanics.
Which is actually a window into how the human brain absorbs and retains any new information.
Right, because ultimately this isn't just about learning English. If you hand someone a standard grammar textbook, right, you ask them to memorize rows and rows of verb conjugations.
Oh, their eyes just glaze over immediately.
Instantly. The mental fatigue is just immediate. But if you take that exact same person and ask them to tell you about a hilarious 90s comedy they just watched.
Or a gripping mystery novel they read.
Right. Suddenly they are navigating complex past tense verbs, subordinate clauses, sequential timelines, all without even realizing they're doing it.
They're doing the heavy lifting of language processing completely by accident.
Exactly.
Because you're bypassing the brain's defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
The listener is just so invested in the narrative that the grammar simply becomes the vehicle for the story.
Instead of a massive obstacle to overcome.
Right.
So as you are listening today, I invite you to think about your own learning habits. Consider how you learn best.
Yeah. Do you thrive when someone hands you a rigid, structured list of rules?
Or do you absorb information more effectively through, natural storytelling? I promise, by the time we finish this deep dive, you're going to look at casual small talk in a completely new light.
It definitely changes your perspective.
So let's get straight to the core of the source material. The entire framework of this video hinges on one incredibly simple question that the hosts, Emily and Paul, introduce right at the start.
Just a classic icebreaker.
Right. The question is simply, what did you do yesterday?
Which, on the surface, is just polite small talk. It's what you ask a colleague while you're standing by the coffee machine.
Exactly. It's totally harmless. But analyzing the transcript, this question operates like a pedagogical Trojan horse.
A pedagogical Trojan horse. That is a perfect way to frame it, actually.
Right, because the casual nature of the question, it basically masks a very demanding cognitive task.
It absolutely does. Because when someone asks you what you did yesterday, you cannot answer them without immediately shifting your brain entirely into past tense mode.
You are forced to navigate a complete minefield of verb tenses.
And you have to do it on the fly.
Yes. You're tripped into practicing grammar because, social convention demands that you answer the polite question.
It's brilliant. Underneath the hood, Emily and Paul are actively manipulating the psychology of learning. By grounding the lesson in a personal everyday narrative, they are deliberately reducing the cognitive load on their audience.
Let's explore that mechanism a bit, because cognitive load is a concept that gets thrown around a lot.
Sure.
I like to think of the brain as a computer's RAM, the working memory. When you are trying to learn a new language, your RAM is basically maxed out.
Well, completely.
You're actively translating vocabulary, you're trying to remember syntax rules, and you're worrying about your pronunciation all at the exact same time. The system is incredibly close to crashing.
That is a great mechanical analogy. If an instructor just walks into a room and announces, "Today we are going to study the structural anomalies of irregular past tense verbs."
Just instant panic.
Exactly. The student's anxiety spikes. The working RAM is instantly overwhelmed by the pressure of that academic framework.
But if that same instructor just sits down and says, "Hey, let me tell you about the terrible morning I had getting coffee today," the anxiety drops to zero.
Because the format is familiar. We all know how to listen to someone complain about their morning commute.
Right. The brain offloads the processing power required to figure out the context, which frees up that RAM to subtly process the grammar being used.
The listener isn't intimidated at all. They just feel like they are listening in on two friends chatting.
Exactly. To really see how this Trojan horse operates in practice, we need to analyze the specific stories that the source hosts tell.
Because the differences in their days are definitely not accidental.
Oh, absolutely not. Reading through their contrasting accounts of what they did yesterday, it becomes glaringly obvious that they are playing two very specific, highly exaggerated characters.
Right, they're building a deliberately polarized narrative structure to cover maximum linguistic ground.
Let's break down the days they constructed, starting with Emily. Emily's day reads like a hyperproductive lifestyle influencer's morning routine.
It's honestly exhausting just to analyze.
It really is. I mean, she wakes up at 6 a.m., she makes coffee, cooks eggs and toast, and then takes a solitary hour-long walk in a beautiful park while listening to music.
And then she tackles what she casually calls light cleaning.
Right, which somehow involves scrubbing the entire kitchen and doing all the dishes.
Naturally.
Then she visits her friend Sarah for tea to talk about their families, comes home, cooks a complex chicken and vegetable soup from scratch.
Listens to a history podcast.
Yes, and is somehow asleep by 10:00 p.m.
It's just a highly active, chore-intensive schedule.
Extremely. And then there is Paul, whose day is a monument to modern leisure.
He is deliberately playing the relaxer.
Deliberately. He sleeps in until 9:00 a.m. He drinks some green tea, eats a banana and yogurt, maybe does 30 minutes of yoga, and then his productivity completely flatlines.
Yeah, he just orders takeout pasta with tomato sauce from an Italian restaurant.
Right. He watches a funny 90s comedy on TV, calls his brother for 20 minutes, and then invites a friend over for hamburgers.
And they play video games for hours.
Yeah, I think his friend won the first game and Paul won the second. And then he finally goes to sleep after brushing his teeth.
The juxtaposition between the two of them is quite stark.
It's entirely polarized. And looking at this, I have to admit, I relate much more to Paul's day of video games and hamburgers than Emily's hyperproductive gardening and history podcasts.
I think we all do, really.
Right. But I actually wondered, were these specific routines chosen just to make Paul look like a slacker? Like just for comedic relief?
Well, there is actually immense pedagogical value here. If you look past the humor, the contrast introduces a really broad spectrum of vocabulary.
Okay, how so?
Well, Emily's highly productive narrative requires a massive suite of action-oriented, chore-based verbs. To tell her story, you have to use words like cleaned, washed, cooked.
Oh, right. Very active words.
Exactly. While Paul's day introduces a vocabulary matrix centered entirely around leisure and modern daily activities. Ordered, watched, called, played.
That is so smart. Because if they both just went to an office, sat at a desk, and came home, the vocabulary would completely overlap.
Right. Furthermore, it naturally layers in the two different types of verbs that learners struggle with, the regular and irregular verbs.
Ah, yes. The regular verbs are the polite ones, right?
Yeah.
They follow the rules.
Exactly. If you want to put them in the past tense, you just attach an ed to the end. Walk becomes walked, brush becomes brushed.
But English is a notoriously messy language.
It really is, largely due to morphological evolution.
Oh, morphological evolution. That is a fascinating way to understand why grammar rules seem to break down constantly. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. It's basically the study of how the forms of words change over centuries of human use.
Right.
Think about the most foundational actions of human survival: eating, sleeping, making things. Because human beings have used those specific words every single day for thousands of years, those verbs have stubbornly retained their ancient irregular forms.
So they basically resist modern standardization.
Exactly. That is why make becomes made, eat becomes ate, and sleep becomes slept.
Wow. So the more frequently a word is used in daily life, the more likely it is to be a bizarre, irregular rule breaker.
Yes. So by detailing everything from their breakfast routines to their evening hobbies, Emily and Paul are deliberately forcing these stubborn, irregular verbs into the conversation.
Contextualizing them in natural habits rather than just forcing a student to memorize a dry list.
Exactly.
But storytelling alone isn't enough to teach grammar. At some point, you do have to look under the hood at the mechanics.
You do. You have to explain the rigid rules.
Which brings us to how the source material handles those rules, and most importantly, how it handles mistakes.
The transition from implicit storytelling to explicit mechanical instruction is where a lot of educational content just fails. But this transcript handles it really well.
Yeah, they tackle some of the most frustrating phonetic ghosts in the English language head on, like the verb read.
Oh, that is such a tricky one for learners.
It's brutal. It's spelled exactly the same in the present tense as it is in the past tense, R-E-A-D.
Right.
But purely based on the timeline of the story, you're suddenly supposed to pronounce it red, like the color. For a learner trying to map spelling to sound, that is incredibly counterintuitive.
It's a perfect example of English prioritizing historical spelling over logical phonetics.
Totally. But the mechanical rule that really stood out to me as the most confusing is how they teach negative sentences in the past tense.
Ah, yes. The did not structure.
Right. Emily explains that if you want to say you did not do something yesterday, you use the phrase did not or didn't, followed by the present tense of the main verb.
Which throws a lot of people off.
It feels like a massive contradiction. You're supposed to say, I didn't watch TV. You absolutely cannot say, I didn't watch TV.
Right.
From an outsider's perspective, why does the main verb suddenly revert to the present tense when the entire conversation is explicitly about yesterday?
It does seem like the sentence is fighting with itself.
It really does.
But it makes complete sense if you view it mechanically. It comes down to the function of auxiliary verbs, helping verbs.
Right.
In the phrase I didn't watch, the word did is the auxiliary verb. Think of did as a structural, load-bearing pillar in the sentence. It is already holding up the massive conceptual weight of the past tense.
So the auxiliary verb is doing all the heavy lifting for the timeline.
Exactly. Because did already establishes the timeline, the main verb watch does not need to change.
That makes perfect logical sense when you explain it as a structural pillar.
Right. If you were to say didn't watch, you'd be building a second structural pillar that you just don't need. It makes the sentence redundant.
But in the heat of a conversation, a learner's brain is so heavily conditioned to apply that ed ending to every single past action.
Which naturally leads to mistakes.
Which leads to what I think is the most pivotal moment in the entire transcript.
The intentional mistake.
Yes. Paul intentionally makes a mistake. He's giving a summary of his routine, and he says, quote, "Yesterday morning, I cleaned my room."
And Emily immediately catches it.
She does. She gently corrects him to cleaned. And they actually take a moment to remind the audience that even native speakers make errors sometimes.
This is a highly calculated pedagogical choice.
Because it models psychological safety, right?
Exactly. Proving that the ultimate goal is communication, not absolute perfection. The fear of making a mistake in front of a native speaker paralyzes adult learners.
So by having Paul, an authority figure on the show, stumble over a common mistake, they lower the temperature in the room completely.
And once they establish that it's safe to fail, they rapidly accelerate the lesson.
Right. They quickly branch out into hypothetical scenarios to teach even more verbs. They use situational scaffolding.
Yes, scaffolding is a brilliant way to build on established knowledge.
They throw out a new variable. They ask, what if it was a rainy day? Instantly, the vocabulary shifts. It rained, so I stayed inside.
Or a bad day. I lost my keys, I missed my bus.
Exactly. They are mapping the grammar onto unpredictable environments. And then Emily demonstrates how to bridge the gap between isolated words and actual conversational fluency.
By linking the actions sequentially.
Right. She models a busy workday by saying, yesterday I answered 50 emails, attended 3 meetings, and finished my big project.
Connected seamlessly by commas.
Yes. She shows the listener how to string those regular verbs together to create a natural rhythm.
Because fluency isn't just knowing the definition of the words, it's mastering the momentum of the sentence.
And just as they establish this incredible rhythm for learning, the transcript takes a massive pivot. Right in the middle of the episode, they drop a major announcement.
This is where the source shifts from a standard educational breakdown into, really, a glimpse of the future.
Yeah. The Mr. English channel announces they are rolling out a new Telegram community for students to meet and practice.
Slowly releasing access to keep it organized, which is smart.
Very smart. But the announcement that truly surprised me is their new Mr. English AI feature.
Oh, the AI integration.
Yes. They are rolling out a feature where learners can practice conversation with an AI 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
A tireless, on-demand conversation partner.
You don't need to coordinate time zones. You don't need to feel self-conscious. You just log in and speak. But I have to push back a little here.
Okay, what's your concern?
Isn't the entire point of language to communicate with real human beings? If you remove the actual human pressure, if you know you're just talking to an endlessly patient bot, do you ever truly learn to speak under pressure?
That is a highly valid critique. The slight spike of adrenaline when a real person is waiting for your response is often what cements a linguistic memory.
Exactly.
However, what this AI integration provides is a necessary sandbox. Before an actor steps onto a Broadway stage, they rehearse in an empty room.
I see.
Making a mistake in front of a real human carries a social cost. Making a mistake in front of an AI carries zero cost.
So it democratizes the psychological safety we talked about earlier.
Precisely. It allows a learner to build the mechanical muscle memory before they have to face the social stakes.
It's the ultimate training ground. And this technological leap actually connects to a brilliant linguistic point made later in the source text.
About the word texted.
Yes. Emily and Paul point out that text was once just a noun. It was a physical block of words printed in a book.
But the invention of the mobile phone created an entirely new human action. The technology evolved faster than the dictionary.
So the language simply adapted on the fly. The noun was hijacked and turned into a verb. We started saying, I text.
And because this new action needed to exist in the past tense, society collectively applied the regular English rule.
Slapped an ED on the end and it became texted. I texted my sister.
It is a real-time demonstration of morphological evolution. Technology isn't just changing how we learn via Telegram or AI, it's fundamentally changing the language itself.
The material you are trying to master is literally shifting beneath your feet. And I just find the irony and brilliance of this so fascinating.
That's it.
Well, we are moving from a one-way broadcast, watching a YouTube video about what someone did yesterday, to a two-way interactive loop where you can practice past tense verbs within AI anytime you want.
It fundamentally changes the speed at which a human being can acquire a complex skill.
It really does. So, to wrap this all up, I think whether your goal is to master English, prep for a presentation, or just be a better communicator, the lesson here is clear.
Dry facts are best served wrapped in relatable human stories.
Exactly.
It's a powerful reminder that language is a living, breathing thing. It's driven by our daily habits and our fundamental desire to connect with one another.
Absolutely. And as we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder based on that observation about texted becoming a verb.
Oh, this is a good one.
With AI and new technologies rolling out every single day, what brand new tech-driven verbs are we inventing right now in our daily conversations?
The vocabulary is always racing to catch up with our tools.
Great. In 10 years, will grammar teachers be patiently explaining to students how to conjugate I AI'd my homework or I ChatGPT did that email in the past tense?
It's honestly highly likely.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring the hidden depths of your daily routines, and we will catch you next time.